Alrighty. Hey everybody. Welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday on October the 8th. My first wasmCloud Wednesday for a couple weeks. Good to be back. And to start us off, I goofed a little bit on making the agenda, which is totally okay. We're just we do have an agenda. Got a couple good things to talk through today. So I'll just verbalize it and then someone awesome like Eric will fix it in post. Um Bailey is going to be taking us through an example of an MCP server as a WASM component. That I don't want to say too much more because there's so much more than that, but I'll leave that to the demo. I want to talk through a fairly large PR that kind of left hanging right before for about 2 weeks, but is shaping up really nicely around the wash runtime. And then thank you, Masood, for pointing this out. But we should take a look at the quarter 3 roadmap and start thinking about quarter 4. So need to make sure that we're capturing what we should get done through the end of the year. And a huge part of quarter 4 is going to be KubeCon in early November. So I think we may have like a mini epic leading towards KubeCon, where hopefully we'll get to see a bunch of fun people in person and then talk rest of quarter 4. So I think that's pretty much the agenda for today. Got a couple maybe other minor things, but why don't I stop talking? And Bailey, why don't you would you mind doing a little spiel on like what the demo's gonna, do your own flow. You know how to do it. You know how to do it.
All right, all right. Okay. So this is slightly different from what I've been doing, which is like, hey, look at all the CI stuff. And you might have been wondering, why am I doing all this CI stuff? And the short answer is that I really wanted to get to the point of showing the art of possible with the next version of Wash, where something works just totally end to end and it's real-ish. I'm still going to use Pet Store, so that makes it feel slightly less real, but you can insert your own enterprise API to make this work. So, what am I going to show? I've got a template that I created along with Victor and Mindy, and essentially this is an MCP server template. So it's a project that uses the Model Context Protocol to serve basically to an MCP client. An MCP client would be like your VS Code instance, or if you're using Claude or ChatGPT. A lot of these things now are adding the ability to connect to an MCP server. Um, and that gives them capabilities that they otherwise don't know how to do. And one of those capabilities that this one specifically is targeting is the ability to make HTTP requests to some API. And sometimes it's kind of hard for an LLM to know, like, how do I formulate this request? What body, what parameters should I put in? What does this even do for me? And some APIs can be extremely verbose. So the idea is that you can use MCP as your glue between what you're trying to do with your LLM and what, the actual backend thing that you want to talk to. And it'll teach the LLM the right ways to call and work with it. And so that at a really high level is what MCP gives you. The MCP spec, it started with stood-in transport and SSE, server-side events transport. This one, however, is using the latest transport, which is streamable HTTP. So just straight up HTTP. And what's really exciting about that is I saw that and I thought, hey, I think that might just literally compile to WASI HTTP, and that will be a portable component that I can run anywhere. So this is open source, so you can grab it. It's called MCP Server Template TS. If you just, clone that down, all you need to run to get it working is wash dev. Don't need to run any other commands. What that'll do is it'll run npm install for you. It will do the right calls to build JCO. And there's something else that's happening here where it actually knows to run this other command, which is the Model Context Protocol Inspector. So when you're working and iterating on an MCP server, you want to be able to inspect it and basically say, hey, can I connect to you? Do you work? Oh, cool, you do work. And I can ask you to list some resources. Okay, so a lot of times resources might be links to documentation, that kind of thing. If I go over to my tools, I want to see what are the things that this MCP server provides? What are its capabilities? Well, the template here just gives you a very basic ability of being able to echo messages back to you, just like this. So this is a really nice little dev loop. If I open and make changes to what I'm allowed to do in this template, watch dev is watching for changes and will rebuild, and then I will be able to reconnect over here with this and just keep iterating. Now, that's kind of the basics. But what knew how to open up this piece here? Well, that's the second part of the equation, and that's another open source project called OpenAPI-to-MCP. Let me get on main here, pull it. All right, what is OpenAPI-to-MCP? Well, it's a WASH plugin, and it takes an OpenAPI spec document and creates MCP tools from it. If we just open up this guy's README, and this one's also at Cosmonic Labs, OpenAPI to MCP. I'm publishing every time we do this, we release it, and we publish it to OCI. But if you're not familiar, WASH plugins themselves are WebAssembly components. So I can say things like WASH plugin install this plugin. I already have it installed. The command is wash plugin list. Hey, it did work. So I have this plugin installed, and as part of a hook into my dev loop, it knows to spin up the model inspector and what path to pass in. So here it knew to make sure that we were running it with this path because we use this v1 at MCP for the template. So that is cool. How do I run it? First thing is that Wash itself already comes with the ability to, work with templates. You can have templates that you already know about, and you can use them as a named template. In this case, I'm using it to just refer to this other template. Oop, yep. Hey, I heard something. Anybody got questions? I should probably pause, I guess. It's probably a lot all at once. Nope. Okay. All right. So, no worries. So let's say that I want to go ahead and make this. I'm going to cheat and use some of my commands that I already have here, which is basically saying I want to generate a Pet Store MCP server. So what do? I say wash new, I give it my template, and I tell it where I want it to generate. Oops, sorry. I want to do just Pet Store. Already exists. Yeah. I just did this. All right. So in here, now I just pulled down that template and plopped it in here. Now this is the same thing that we were talking about before, where if I open up these tools, there's our little echo guy. That's what I showed you earlier. Now I've cloned that one and I told it to just put it in a different project path. I put it conveniently here in my test folder because this is where I like to iterate. Now the next step would be to pass in an OpenAPI to MCP spec. So this is a spec here, input.json. It's basically exactly the same thing as what you could download from Pet Store, swagger3.io. There's three of them. I can't tell you why, but this is where it's hosted. And the main reason why I'm using the one here locally is just if you specify this trick here, this server's URL, then I can take that as part of the generator and just make sure that that is our base URL by default that we use in the server that we generate. So this is what the HTTP clients inside the MCP server go out and talk to. So next step would be to run it with that. I'm going to go back to my README, just make sure I don't copy and paste things wrong again. All right, take this whole thing and run it. And it's going to be like, hey, I want to copy things around, generate into this folder. Cool. Go ahead and make that happen for me and clean up afterwards. Now it went and it generated all these tools, more than just Echo. Look at all these. Now I know how to do things like delete the username for the pet store, or more normal things for a pet clinic. Do things like post pet, get pet, what pets are available. All right, so if I wanted, same thing, I can go in here into test, generate, run watch dev, and get the exact same experience that I did over here. So let's just do that. Pet store generated, watch dev, get that same dev loop rolling. Make sure I closed it out over here. Whoopsies. Ah, good news. NPM run build is slow. Oh, and I should actually show you what that's actually doing underneath. I'll show you a little bit more on the build trick here. But now this sets up another server, and when I go over here to tools and I list them, wow, bunch of pet store stuff. Okay, so those are those APIs. And that's cool. And I can pass in certain things like, hey, I want to find pets that are available. This might work, might not. We'll see. Yeah, okay, I passed in the wrong thing. Um, but generally, this is kind of like at a high level is how you can interact with pets. That is okay, but let's actually show what it's like if you're working with it as if you were working from it from an LLM. This is Goose. There are plenty of other options. You could use things like ChatGPT, Claude, et cetera, et cetera. There are many different MCP hosts out there that have MCP clients that connect to MCP servers. I like Goose because I think it's a lot easier to work with as a development tool. It gives me good errors about when I don't set this thing up correctly. It doesn't require me to have assigned cert for my server, which is handy if you're doing a development server, etc. So I want to go over here and go to extensions, add a custom extension. We're going to call it Pet Store. Change the type to streamable HTTP. Now let's give it the same endpoint that we had over here. Drop it in. I don't have to put anything else in there. And now select successfully connected. So that means that it knew that this thing is definitely running. It was able to connect just like my model inspector. So that means if I go back out here and I say something like, I don't know, what pets are available for adoption? It will see that it could use a tool, get pet, find by status, available. It'll check the inventory. But right now, I noticed that I was getting some interesting issues with the 500. It has been logged. So the backend service that I'm using here to test this stuff out isn't up right now, which is unfortunate. But I think you generally get the idea that you can generate a client, generate a message and output, and it should just work. I'm tempted to try one more. There's another one that we've been using, which is called, well, I don't want to dive into it. That's Liam's demo. I'm just going to stick it with simple pet store. If I pull it down with a container and run that locally, I probably could get something working live. Liam, were you tempted to show
No, go
Fred?
Bailey, go ahead and show it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to generate it, I can pull up the Claude. I can take the cake out of the oven if you want. I think I've got the cake already here.
Well, you actually committed it here. Does it have the server in here? Let me check. Yes, it
Uh,
does. Okay, all right. So here's another example that's just in this repo. I actually haven't tried generating it before, so I'm gonna give it a shot. And so instead of doing pet store, let's do the okay, fine. Guess I'll type the whole thing. Yes, there we go. Generated. Cool. Okay, so same thing. I just put up a template over there. And now if I say, well, I should put API to MCP and I pass in yes, input.yaml, and I want to go to the same place. Generated. Second. thing, generate into it. All right, let's go check this thing out. All right, I'm just going to open it up in a different window. So all we see is, and Liam, do you want to do the voiceover? What is the server? What did I just generate against?
Sure. The U.S. Federal Reserve provides an incredible long-running repository of economic data. So what I wanted to do was just to grab an API that people were commonly using to build reports. So at a big company, what you might do is pull all this data right through the API into Excel, and then you'd pull in all of your own custom data or other comparison economic data, and then you chart, things over time like for example, what is the impact on housing data starts when compared to consumer confidence and the federal funds rate? And then you might create some charting and sort of understand, where the world is going or what's the impact here. And you need to pre-register for an API key at Fred, which is pretty common. But Bailey, if you let me share your screen, I can just take the cake out of the oven real fast. So what I've done is I have just configured this in Claude, and then I asked it to pull those three variables: the federal housing starts, the federal funds rates, and the consumer confidence repo. And I did this with Bailey and my 11-year-old daughter, although she's 12, she's had her birthday this weekend. And we asked it to explain it in a way that she could understand with three creations here: a timeline chart, a comparison chart, and then a middle school friendly narrative. And this is what came up. So I think what this shows is this is a good example of how quickly we can enable the adoption of agentic specific technologies like Model Context Protocol and MCP servers, but sandbox them in order to remove some of the agentic specific risk. If you're not familiar with that term, or if that is curious, you might think like, well, look, all agentic software is still just software. But what happens is that the very free text nature of this interactivity and this searching leads to an enhanced risk for vulnerabilities like LLM prompt injection, like data exfiltration, like improper input-output handling, and things like that. So by locking it down in a tiny WebAssembly sandbox, you're able to mitigate these risks very effectively so you can continue to move fast. And Bailey, I don't know if you maybe want to inspect the WebAssembly component you just created and show people how it's limited underneath the hood. I think some developers might be like less interested in that, which we're trying to like hide in this case. But I think for this community in particular, that's a super relevant detail. And I want to go ahead and add that we've got a couple folks on the call, Ian and a few others that are working on some different ways of doing this that I think are awesome. We reached out to them to see if we could help them get their stuff running on wasmCloud, and hopefully they can give a demo of some different approaches here next week or in the next few days as well. So Ian, hello. We can pick up on Slack there. And Bailey, I'll go ahead and go back on mute. I think I kind of like talked over enough to maybe get you back to where you need to be.
Sure, yeah, appreciate that. Thank you for doing the cookie show with me, Liam. I promised I would show a little bit about how this build works. You saw over in the tools, like what does the source code to write this thing look like? Well, I mean, it is regular old TypeScript. The goal here is that you have no idea that you're doing WebAssembly stuff. But not only that, but you're able to take the existing SDK, which I gotta say, wow, that's moving really fast. This gets updated a lot. It's got I feel like their protocol versions change quite a bit. And so basically, we're able to take advantage of that and that speed by not abstracting that away, but by just like building straight from their piece and producing a WebAssembly component that's just regular old WASI HTTP. So if we want to look at that wit, it is, yeah. It's WASI HTTP. It doesn't have a ton in it. And that's actually really nice. It means that I'm not supposed to be able to access other external pieces. Right now, there's definitely some language tooling updates that I'd like to make so that it doesn't include as much of WASI as it currently does. So Liam asked for doing an inspect. It builds into the dist folder here, and so you can say wash inspect component.wasm. And this will show you exactly the capabilities right now that it imports from the host to be able to serve as both making requests out to an HTTP client and also be able to handle incoming requests. And so those are your WASI HTTP handlers. These pieces here basically come from the build tooling that we're using, and it doesn't have to be there. So my goal is to get rid of that as well. Now, I did intentionally pass WASI CLI environment here, and that's what I'm using to pass in configuration values, like being able to set things for authentication. If you want to see how small it is, it's not the smallest WASM, I'll be honest. The JavaScript tooling is a lot more than if you were to do this with Rust. And yet, it is way smaller than if I were to run this with Node.js, like the memory footprint that leaves. Or if I were to build a container with this, we're talking hundreds of megabytes. So extremely competitive with those other solutions while also being, sandboxed, which is pretty nice. In terms of tech stack here, I already highlighted that it builds with the Model Context SDK. To be able to build JavaScript, TypeScript code into WASM, we, as in Victor, hey Victor, if you're here, is one of the maintainers for a project called JCO and Componentize. And JCO is the JavaScript component tooling, and Componentize is the command for taking JavaScript code and stuffing it into a WebAssembly component, componentizing it. Our wash dev, when we ran that, it looked for a build command and then knew to go ahead and do the TypeScript thing. So we take our TypeScript and we compile our TypeScript to JavaScript, and then we componentize it by taking our JavaScript and putting it in WASM. And at the final point here is we get a .wasm, this one here, component.wasm. I don't need any JavaScript glue to be able to run it. Not only that, but if I wanted, I can also serve this with wasmTime because again, it is just a regular old WASI HTTP component, so it's portable and it can run anywhere. So yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years trying to find ways to bridge the gap going back to ecosystems. And a lot of times that meant having to build our own interfaces or our own tooling, our own frameworks to make things work. But the reality is that ecosystems in a lot of ways have evolved and are able to come the other direction, where if we start with what they have and make that work, we're able to both move pretty fast. So I was pretty happy to see that. I want as an effort to be able to take existing solutions and have them work just off the shelf, have code, and be a developer that really doesn't know anything about WASM is happening. So when I look at this, I want to see idiomatic TypeScript, idiomatic JavaScript, no shenanigans, and it just all worked. And I kind of feel like we hit that. I think we've hit it, finally. It's been years, but I think we're there, y'all. You want to see some CI stuff? I can't help it. I'm gonna do it again. All right, I'm gonna just show you something real quick. If you clone from this MCP server template, you're gonna get a pipeline already built for you using our actions toolkit, which is all from wasmCloud. So in this case, I've got a build CI step, setup wash, just builds it, and then publishes it if you want to do a publish here. And it all just works. It's pretty nice. You don't have to so long as you are doing regular old WebAssembly components, you really don't need any extra steps here. And this is really fast. It's cached using the actions cache. So an example that I did yesterday of this, just testing out that all this stuff works end to end, is this Pet Store MCP server. I used a tool called Backstage to scaffold it. And what that did is it went and created a PR that ran our OpenAPI to MCP plugin. So if you look, you'll see all the same files that I was showing you earlier that get generated for all the tools for MCP server tools. Directly in this repo, this is the index of all those tools that our little wash plugin generated for us. But the way that that worked is that actually that's also one of the workflows that you can run here. This is the OpenAPI to MCP gen workflow. It takes in an input for where did you put that spec path? By default, we plop it here. And the next step is to, here, when we set up Wash, we also set up the plugins. These are also part of the tools cache. So this step is pretty fast. So when I run this, I get wash build going. I generate from that spec, and then it creates a pull request to say, hey, here are the new tools based on that spec. And that's a pretty handy, fast way to get started instantly building an MCP server with WebAssembly components. Now, Liam mentioned there are a lot of other approaches that are happening in the ecosystem, and yeah, we are super welcoming to them. Honestly, I'm gonna be straight up. This OpenAPI to MCP thing, it's a dime a dozen. I found like 15 of these for real. It was really easy to get started because we've been doing this for like a decade now of generating OpenAPI clients. And that's really what this is, except mapping to MCP tool constructs. And I know some people who are on the MCP side that are purists that say that really it's not an amazing practice to, make these MCP servers be one-to-one with OpenAPI. If that's the case, then you should just generate, from there and maybe just implement a proxy. And so there's folks like Hybris that have taken that approach, which is kind of in the extreme side of like, just give me an OpenAPI spec and I will map it to an MCP server for you. Nobody actually needs to commit this. My goal with this was to make it very much more of a hybrid approach where I think it's the right move to take an OpenAPI spec to get started. But then I think there's lots of things that you could do to evolve it to get to a point where it's much more of in line with things that will give you an API that's really ergonomic for LLMs to call. So get you something that gets building really fast right away, and then give you something that you can change the code of to get to where you want to be. Yeah, Liam.
Bailey, one of the neat things you've done here is you've taken Hano and you have pre-selected a set of libraries and a template that works really well with WebAssembly today in its current state. I know that Victor on our team is working really hard on JCO. And then you also highlighted a second opportunity around, right now each component includes a whole copy of the runtime, which is what blows it up and makes it large. Can you give us a track on what does the next 6 months look like for this space? Will I always have to choose pre-selected libraries? Will there ever be a world where a developer just writes JavaScript and this just works out of the box?
That's a great question. Okay, so breaking it down. I didn't even go that far. Okay, I stopped the story of JCO componentize will give you a .wasm. But what's in the .wasm? The thing that you need to know is that there is a bytecode alliance project called StarlingMonkey, or maybe you only need to know right now, and our goal is, again, to keep making that be something that goes below the fold that doesn't have to be in your face when you're just trying to work with WASM. This is a JavaScript runtime that compiles to WebAssembly. And when we run JCO componentize, we get this runtime inside that .wasm. So when we are running this, really we're just taking that JavaScript code and effectively interpreting it by this runtime. And if you think this name is strange, I guess the quick explainer, you're probably familiar with SpiderMonkey, which is where this very much gets its origins. SpiderMonkey is the JavaScript runtime inside Firefox. A lot of those developers joined Fastly, and now we're talking like 5 years ago. And Fastly also had their own JavaScript runtime that was a minimal JavaScript runtime meant for edge functions, and it was called Starling. So when those two projects come together and make a runtime baby, it's called StarlingMonkey. And so that's basically what that is. It's hosted inside the Bytecode Alliance nonprofit foundation. If you've joined this call ever before, we almost always point out Bytecode Alliance is a really great place for building the foundational pieces of the software that we depend on, like guest toolchains. When I say guest, I mean, how do I take this thing and get it into Wasm? And then also on the host side, which is how do I run the Wasm, which is our runtime of choice is wasmTime, but inside JCO as well, it gives you the ability to, instead of just calling componentize, I can also run a command called JCO transpile and use that to run inside Node.js and other, potentially web-based environments and that kind of thing. So now that you know what StarlingMonkey is, let me tell you a little bit about StarlingMonkey's roadmap. Right now, Liam called out that instead of doing all just 100% model context protocol SDK, this dependency, I also have another dependency on Hano. Now, if I had this direct dependency and a couple other things, you would also see Express here. If you are not a TypeScript wizard like I am 100% not, I'm looking at you, Victor, for filling in that gap. And if I get any of this wrong, please chime in. Express is kind of like, it's one of the OGs ways for doing handlers, server handling in JavaScript for Node.js. We do not yet have 100% Node.js compatibility inside StarlingMonkey. So when it sees Node.js specific APIs, it might fail, which it definitely did for me when I was trying to get this compiling for the first time. However, StarlingMonkey has been working very hard going forward on doing WinterTC APIs, which is another standards body for coming up with really great ways to run things, not just in the web and not just for Node.js, but in things like Bun and Dino and running on Cloudflare workers. And that suite of APIs is something that Hano is really well aligned to, and that's really just fetch, which is kind of the more modern way of doing a lot of this. But not only that, it helps me also produce a much slimmer binary at the end of the day. So in our list of dependencies, it's still very, very slim. I mean, let's be real. It's just Zod for me doing schema checking. It's this for doing fetch and our routes. It's this for basically everything else.
Okay. Let me play back what I think I heard in maybe as simply as possible. Today, the framework embeds, the right libraries to get people started and working in this direction, sandboxing MCP. And then in the near future, there will be a world where I can just start with any old, JavaScript or TypeScript framework, and I'll be able to compile this down. And I won't even need to really understand. This will be just a build option, and I'll, decide to either build it for Node or I'll just build it for as a WebAssembly component. Was that did I basically summarize what I think I heard there? Yes? No? Victor's got some good context here in chat, I think.
Yeah, Victor, do you want to jump in? This was very much something I probably should have just directed at you, but you weren't on camera, so I didn't know if you were eating or what time it is,
Yeah, let
where
me
it
get
is in Tokyo.
I mean, Brooks should probably get to ask his question first.
I have too many things. You should probably go, Victor. I think I have some like larger questions from the demo. So go for it.
Yeah. Well, so what Bailey said is mostly true, and it's pretty much spot on the sort of state of things now and where things are going. But right now, the reason we can use Hono so easily is because of WinterTC, formerly known as WinterCG support. And this is basically a sort of cross-language, cross-framework effort to support sort of JavaScript primitives. Well, primitives in JavaScript, but also like for platforms and sort of like things that most programs need. A sort of common API for JavaScript programs. We don't yet. You can't yet just take any library from like npm and run it out of the box because of the sort of specifics of the Node platform, right? So StarlingMonkey has WinterTC support, but it does not have just generic Node.js support. So like when you do things like import Node FS, that stuff is backed by libraries that are, specific to Node, and you can't, for example, just run those in a browser, for example. So there's work underway to support those Node interfaces. And I say interfaces, but you can think of them as interfaces from the code side, but they're sort of built-ins, right, that are available on the Node side. And so there's work to support this stuff. There's lots of ways you can do this, right? So you can do this at a completely sort of JavaScript level and patch it through to the Wasm stuff that's available right now. But the way we're trying to do this, or the current approach, is to actually put this support straight into StarlingMonkey. So at the lowest level, adding support for, like, let's say like Node FS, for example, so that you have a better chance of just being able to take any library off of npm and compile it into a WebAssembly module.
That's awesome. So let me maybe come back, Brooks, and I apologize for asking so many questions. I got so curious when you were on vacation. So let me ask the second question here, Bailey. So today, again, the second kind of opportunity that I think you referenced was each one of these sandboxes has a full copy of this runtime. Today, WebAssembly components are share nothing, stack-based virtual machines. I know we just got WASI P3 out, which is a huge accomplishment. Is there anything coming in the next few months that would give you the ability to, load a particular version of TypeScript once and then share it across many scripts or something like that?
Yeah, like, whoa, though. Hey, we haven't gotten WASI P3 out. Let's not say that. Hey, folks, we have a release candidate, and we have another one coming. There are release candidates. There are implementations.
This is why I just asked the questions and why you guys do the answers. That's a good thing, right?
Okay. Yes, I did cut a release yesterday, but it was for 0.2. Whew. Hey, I know Victor probably started panicking because Victor's over here like, hey, yeah, I did just get the test passing all of the, what would you call those spec tests, Victor, that you just got working?
Also, it's like a bunch of new sort of WebAssembly components. So for people who don't know, Preview 3 or P3 is a sort of enhancement of the capabilities and things you can do with WebAssembly components in general. So of course, it's like if you can think of it like a change to the spec and the implementations and the tooling and sort of the sort of lowest levels of the ecosystem. So with that stuff, when P3 is fully released, the kind of WebAssembly components, mostly sort of unbeknownst to the average user, will change. So basically, new sort of you call them intrinsics or new sort of let's say functionality will be packed into components in general. So making sure those components work in all the places we try and run and all the ways we try and run web components is something everyone is working on right now, and sort of improving test suites, making sure things work both in like the Rust ecosystem and in my case in the JavaScript ecosystem, because JCO is the sort of second reference implementation of a way to run web components. We have the Rust stuff with wasmTime, and this is the stuff that we make use of in wasmCloud, and most teams in sort of modern WebAssembly make use of. And then there is the JS ecosystem via JCO transpile that also can run WebAssembly components, the sort of modern WebAssembly component. So we try and make sure that the new components that have sort of new functionality in them, like the binaries are different, the sort of commands they can contain are different, also run in JavaScript. So yeah, that's the work that's underway. It's not done. It can't, but we do welcome people to try it out and to build what you can build. There are good repos that are good examples. We'll maybe link some in the chat.
Thank you, Victor. Okay, so that distracted me. I couldn't handle that. That was but my hair is back. Other people's hair is loaded. So one thing that Liam mentioned, I'm not sure a fast, easy way to just show this in here, but basically, um, there are multiple core modules. Maybe that's what I should search for here. Loaded inside inside this .wasm. One of these is StarlingMonkey. Uh, Now, what we're able to do with WebAssembly components and also just WebAssembly modules in general, actually, there are two different types of linking. And our plan from the Bytecode Alliance side is to make it so that this piece doesn't have to be included. If we push up an OCI artifact and we explode this out into layers, then just like the way that you expect deduping to happen of OCI layers, we want also these common runtimes to be deduped so that you're only downloading the bytes of basically the JavaScript code that you needed to compile and run. In this case, I want my .wasm to be fully self-contained and just runnable by anybody, anytime, anywhere. But there's a lot of different types of tooling enhancements that are post-guest toolchain tooling, but in the sphere of more like in the OCI layer that we can really optimize this stuff away and get something that's much, 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 much smaller and shared. All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Ian, Corey, I know you guys are maybe new to the call, but I know you've been on the Slack wasmCloud and recently. I think I spotted some work that you guys were doing that was in this same area with some different approaches. I'd love for you guys to maybe introduce what you are working on, and Bailey, would you mind maybe helping us to understand, some of the cool trade-offs between different approaches and things like that? I think you might be a good person to pick up from there. Brooks, and I apologize. I'm not trying to be guest host, but maybe, not maybe.
No, this is great. Just a heads up, I'm gonna save the last 5 minutes of the call just to do our other agenda items. But yeah, um,
Yeah, this is awesome today.
Yeah, cool. So hey, I'm Ian and Corey's on this call too. We both quit our jobs at another startup a few months ago to work full time on basically the problem related to this. So we are started from the top down with the problem of solving the problem of like real-time agent tools. Essentially, real-time agents are becoming a thing, real-time model APIs, but there are no real-time tool calling infrastructure to support that. And so we tried out a bunch of different ways. We tried deploying stuff on Cloudflare at the edge. We tried basically like every architecture like for that we could find and that we had worked with before for deploying MCP servers, benching them. And then we realized, wait, WebAssembly is basically the future here. They're like inherent architectural advantages to especially the component model as it relates to MCP in terms of their like structural symmetry, if that makes sense. MCP servers are also just a bag of capabilities that can be composed and progressively added together. And that fits very well into the component model ideas. And so that was kind of like where we came from with our approach. And we have a repo right now kind of implementing that idea. And also, I didn't know I would be talking. So that's next week. I'll have like we can demo like an actual demo, or we can give you a real honest one. But
No, that'd be
yeah,
Yeah, I was trying to
yeah.
pick up the spot there. I apologize. I really just I've been watching what you guys were working on, and I thought it was super cool. And we always think that there's CNCF Wasm Cloud is incubating, so it's not just open source. It's controlled and known by a foundation, and it's really the community's runtime. So we
Mhm.
really try to call out and lift up and call attention to folks that are doing cool stuff in the ecosystem. Bailey, I don't know if you had any questions or thoughts, or we can look forward to the demo next week. Ian, Corey, like I said, I wasn't trying to put you too much on the spot. Just really
I
trying
mean,
to, get you guys out there and let people know what you're working on.
I can briefly show you like the wit if that helps with some context for answering that question. I don't know really how much uh if you're trying to answer Bailey, or if you've looked through the repo, that's cool too. I don't know if you have.
I mean, obviously have,
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
listen, if it's got the word WASM in it, if it's a blog, news post, repo in GitHub, I've probably looked at it and been like, let's go. And yeah, I'm really excited about your approach. I would prefer that we save as much time as we can so that we like really, put the light on it instead of like throw you into an ad hoc demo, which Liam totally did to me actually, like an hour before this call, just saying. But I don't want to, that's not the type of love that I want to pass around right now. So if you want to save it for next week and we just focus on that, that would be huge. I think, it's if you want to give the short answer, totally welcome to. I think what will be the wit native approach versus the trivial approach, which is what I would say I took on this.
I don't know if it's trivial. It's two different like types of engineers would use each approach right now. Your approach is like what that you're right. You don't need to know about WebAssembly. If you're like, I have a WebAssembly runtime or a platform and I want to deploy an MCP server, you couldn't do that easily before. And now it's like you don't have to know how any of that works and you can do that. So, and then I feel like mine is coming out from like a more like it's just like a different goal. But I feel like they'll eventually converge into some common tooling and some common idea that hopefully like works everywhere because that's the whole promise of this technology, right? That's what's amazing about it. Like we have our stuff
Yes.
running on Fermion Cloud, Fermion Wasm
Yep.
functions and stuff, and it's amazing to just have platforms that are like component buckets in the
Yes.
future. Yeah, so excited.
Yeah, my goal basically is for the projects like what you've made to be able to run on Wasm Cloud, and for like was that and other solutions like that. All of them, like we're in the business right now of selling shovels, right? And let's get all of these different approaches working because that's the win, right? Is true portability, true sandboxability. There's there really isn't a better answer right now. I think when you guys said that when you discovered it with MCP servers, I'm looking at all this stuff and it's like, man, I wish we had an API for defining how to do capabilities and how to share tools and make it so that I can run it anywhere. And now they're like, well, let me find a way to package this up so that I can run it in all these environments. I'm like, components. Components are the only answer here. Yeah. Okay. I'm off my soapbox now.
We should talk. I like this.
Yeah, this is so cool as I mean, well, MCP servers are big, but seeing like all the different approaches, like you guys, your WIT interface, I just thought it was really cool. The thing that I saw immediately is your HTTP transport world, and I'm like, oh, it's just WASI HTTP, but that should just like work on Wash like right now. It's great. And then the stuff, I guess, Bailey, I have a billion questions for you too. And then like the stuff that we're doing with our template at Cosmonic, which is from OpenAPI templates, and then Wasm at Microsoft is which I only have a surface level knowledge of, but using WIT as the interface for MCP, it's really interesting seeing where this is all going to shake out.
Yeah, who knows? Or maybe Anthropic will come out with their own official component SDK or something, or someone's working on it. Or maybe one of some project like the ones we're working on will end up becoming that, or I don't know. Yeah, it's really cool though.
Yeah, true. Very true. Um, well, hey, I know we're getting tight on time. Bailey, I guess I had my hand up earlier because we saw like 15 different technologies in these demos. So tons of stuff like Goose and MCP Inspector. It's really cool to see like, other open source tools, or I don't know if Goose is open source, but if it's, whatever, I need to, okay, yeah, Goose open source. Um, nope, that's not it. um Platform thing. Come on. I'm thinking of Superbase, but that's not it. It's really not. Backstage. Yeah, cool. My brain.
Yeah, I could do a backstage demo whenever we need to slot in another demo.
And so I really just wanted to ask. So there's the TypeScript template that you were generating from like with Washinu, and then OpenAPI to MCP, which is the tool that you were primarily demoing, which is a compilable to a component, and you run it as a Wash plugin, and that takes as input this template the template, which is like an MCP Hano TypeScript template, basically, and then generates the tools there. And then you have a working MCP server with Hano TS and like all the official things. You're just compiling it to Wasm, and that's how you're running it.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And then you did it again basically with that Fed YAML, and same process. All you need is like basically the project scaffolding and then the OpenAPI template, and then you get the thing.
Yeah, once you have a generator, you can do the do it again method as many times as you want. And
Yeah.
also, thank you, Victor, as well, for helping me get this thing compiling.
Yeah, big kudos. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, dang. Maybe Bailey, we can slice up every 10 minutes of your demo and then do a whole community call for that deep dive.
The hilarious slash sad part is that I have been doing that basically the last two community calls. I've been like, all right, let me show you one more CI change that I had to make, which was getting it up to that point where you got the like full end to end. You can scaffold the whole thing. It'll generate the whole thing all from CI, and then you can publish it.
But cool.
But now we need to do the MCP side of it, I guess. Yeah.
Um, cool. Yeah, I think the only other thing that I had is maybe some nits on how we should make the plugin experience better. But maybe I'll bring that up offline in Slack and we can talk about it. Yeah, folks, anybody else have questions for Bailey, Liam, Ian, Corey?
I guess just one question for Bailey. Is the goal of this project to support directly like any other languages in this way, or is it just supposed to be like for TypeScript, JavaScript specifically? Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think long term, the goal is definitely
mhm.
for all these other languages to be able to just compile TM. Uh, However, if you look at the model context SDKs that are available right now, well, first of all, I sense that there's only two that really all the focus is on right now from Anthropic side and from the folks that are maintaining that. It seems obviously Python and then TypeScript. And the reason why I decided to spend time on the TypeScript route is that Cloudflare and several others have seemingly gone all in on the Cloudflare approach of doing it in TypeScript. And so if that's going to be the best experience for doing MCP and all this stuff moves so fast, I wanted to make sure that that had the best route.
Yeah,
Now, long term, obviously, though, like any of those other SDKs, I think they should just be able to compile straight off the shelf. But I'm approaching that in terms of this project all the way upstream, right? Like I'm talking to folks like Brett Cannon working on CPython and being like, all right, WASI P3 is about to come out, not out. And what do we need to do to make that like a really easy experience to get that compiling? And I know that's
yeah.
a key difference between this project and what you've been working on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that is like that. Like the Rust SDK has an example for WASI. I don't know when they added that or whatever. So that has like some basic ability to at least do tools that way. I'm sure the other ones will add it too. So it'd be really awesome in the future if there was, you don't have to learn something new. But yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
All right, well, hey, I think we've got a pretty fun looking next week community call then. Just to kind of speed run here in the last couple minutes of the call, I did promise to do a quick on two things. So I just wanted to give, I basically abandoned this PR for a short amount of time, but the runtime crate that we've been working on, dubbed wasmCloud, but basically the runtime crate underneath Wash that supports plugins and built-ins and all those things is now fully integrated into Wash in this PR. So running Wash Dev, if you install plugins, that's going to be using the essentially like workload API with wasmCloud to actually drive component to component calls and working with built-in plugins. So that is all looking really exciting. I should have this out of draft and ready for review a little bit later today. So we'll let that marinate. Folks are welcome to take a look if you're interested. Most of the 14,000 lines is just generated stuff, but I don't know. It's a couple thousand lines for sure. So please feel free to take a look. Only other thing that I wanted to mention here is just a shout out to all the folks who have been coming in and contributing to Wash since this project kind of opened. I've been really impressed, really heartened by all the contributors coming in. Like Jacob, you're crushing it, like continually coming in, fixing things, fixing to-dos, issues of different sizes. And so like all your stuff is merging basically right now and going to be cut and released, which is awesome. Um, Luca, looks like you've come in. I don't think this is the first contribution here, and neither for Junji. So really just thank you guys so much for coming in and contributing to the project. It's really awesome to see like, working really fast and you leave it to do. It's like, yeah, gotta add config cleanup at some point, and someone comes in and does it. It's really awesome. So thank you all so much for doing that. Um, oh, hey, mouse battery. This pull request bringing in this crate is not going to finalize, but it makes significant progress on what we've planned for the quarter 3 roadmap. So we have some completed items here on the quarter 3 roadmap, which I guess quarter 3 wrapped up last week. So we're due planning for quarter 4. I think we can schedule this roadmap planning for next week, may be too soon. I want to make sure that we can get everybody's feedback. So let's tentatively say 2 weeks from today. What day would that be? October 22nd? I know that's quite a bit into quarter 4, but it's kind of like what we did last year where KubeCon comes up in quarter 4. Like everybody's gearing up for that and getting their demos ready and, working on their talks and everything. So it'd be good to have a little buffer room to plan. Um, but anyways, this PR for the wasmCloud crate makes a ton of progress on in-process component to component calls that's implemented in the wasmCloud crate, which is awesome. Reducing host responsibility, simplifying interface maintenance, configuring a wasmCloud host with like built-in providers, all of that is present in the wasmCloud crate now. So expect these to move across pretty quickly. This is all, and then really only the remaining work is integrating that into like the wasmCloud binary and getting that out and released. I'm going to touch base with Luke Ark at some point this week to talk about capability provider changes, since I know that he was doing a lot of work there, essentially in a backwards compatible way, which is great. And there really isn't that much that hasn't been started or isn't accounted for. So maybe 1 or 2 will roll over to quarter 4, but it's looking exciting. Doing really just congrats and thanks everybody for the work in Q3. It's a ton to get done, even just on the Wasm Cloud side, not even thinking about WASI P3, the thing that is not out yet, but soon. Um, sorry, it's just a joke at this point, and it's messing with Bailey. All right. Hey, I just wanted to speed run that real quick. So let's pencil in 2 weeks from now to be the quarter 4 roadmap planning, which basically be like November, December planning. And yeah, I think that's it. Since we are a DA question. Capability provider model isn't going away entirely in V2, right? No, definitely not. The things that we, just to disambiguate real quick, the things that we want to get away from in the capability provider model is the custom provider archive thing where you have to build binaries for every architecture and then put it in this like special tarball with claims, and then Wasm Cloud needs to run processes. That's what we want to get away from. But extending Wasm Cloud at runtime is still definitely a goal, and that's the whole point of the WRPC server effort. Let me link that if folks want to take a read. But Aditya, thank you for asking that question. I didn't mean to be ambiguous there. Yes. Okay. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and call it for this one. Thanks, folks, thank you, Ian, Corey. I realize you guys didn't even really get to do a full introduction, so maybe next week we can get that done. So thanks all the new folks and the old folks, and we'll see you next week. Have a